Kyle Loomis here from E2C Network, and you can catch everything Auburn there at E2C Network right here on YouTube. The current recruiting situation is 13th in the rankings. I don't think that's very important here at the end of June, beginning of July.
Right.
Eric Winters is a safety out of Enterprise, Alabama, the fifth rated player at his position in the country.
Yep.
A top 50 player nationally. He just committed here in the last 10 or 15 days. And then I see a running back, Alvin Henderson, also out of the state of Alabama, as a top 15 player at the running back position. And so those look to be the two latest commits.
Yes, those are the two latest commits and the biggest commits, the ones that are kind of holding some of the Auburn faithful at bay from falling off a cliff right now. There's been a pair of decommits, one at the offensive line position, Carday Smith, and then we also lost a linebacker, Tyler Lockhart. Folks, we are just so early in this game. If you're panicking about the decisions of 17 and 18-year-olds, don't. It's a long process. There used to be a day, Mark, if somebody flipped or decommitted, they did it once and that was it. But Auburn's seen one person they flipped and go back to where they were originally already way earlier in this class, way earlier than we should have even been talking about it. So if you're panicking right now as an Auburn fan, don't. You got a lot of great things that are already in this class. It's got a long way to go. You brought up Eric Winters, one that took a long time to get the actual commitment out of, and after a great recruiting weekend, they were able to get that. Same thing with Alvin Henderson, being able to pull him away from Penn State, where I'm sure that was going to be an interesting dynamic, him coming all the way from Enterprise, Alabama, all the way up to Pennsylvania. But he's staying home with Auburn. So I'm not too worried about this recruiting class right now. Still plenty of time.
Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football, everyone. We welcome your comments and questions there in the chat. We got Kyle Loomis here talking Auburn football. And yes, video games. And July 19th is the date for EA Sports to unveil the much anticipated college football game and Auburn recruiting. Kyle, appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
Unless you've got anything else that you wanted to offer, we just wanted an Auburn update out of you.
Well, the only thing that I will say is with Oklahoma and Texas joining yesterday, I'm not going to speak for every SEC fan or every Auburn fan, but I personally am super excited about this. And there's an increasing amount of conversation around this Auburn-Oklahoma matchup in Week 5. And that's coming from both sides. I just heard today another Auburn fan that had crossed paths this weekend with an Oklahoma fan, and they were asking them, we're really excited to come to Auburn for this first time to experience the town, to experience what you guys are like. There's a lot of interest generating around that. The one thing that is disappointing is that they can't be that primetime game because Alabama, Georgia is the same night. We all know that's going to take the viewership in that spot. But this one's building, and I think you're going to have quite not just the showing in Jordan-Hare for the game in terms of fans, but just it's going to be a great matchup. There's a lot of excitement brewing around this one, and for good reason.
When you bring up Georgia, Alabama playing and Auburn and Oklahoma playing on the same day. Now, we have had this situation in the SEC for years and years and years where you can look at specific Saturdays and be like, wow, I want to see about 4 games. But of course, that's been amplified with the entries of Oklahoma and Texas, where I'm sure if we went week to week through the SEC, there are weeks that are just ridiculous.
Yes. Yeah. And that's going to be one of those where you have those two. If I remember, I looked through that Week 5 schedule a lot. And there's some probably maybe sneaky good matchups, or at least just intriguing storylines around matchups. But the two that week are going to be Georgia and Alabama, clearly, and Auburn, Oklahoma. Just because it's Georgia and Alabama, they've been, the two biggest out of the SEC in that narrative. Then you've got this brand new thing happening with Oklahoma and Auburn. So one's going to be in the afternoon. That's Auburn, Oklahoma. One's going to be at night. There's not going to be any overlap there. Like I said, the one shame is that Auburn and Oklahoma can't happen at night in Jordan-Hare. I'm hoping and I'm praying that random whiff of cool fall air that sometimes comes through Alabama in late September just for a week hits during that, so we can have just a perfect college football Saturday.
Now, the one thing that comes to mind when I think about new matchups is my mind, unfortunately, while most people are forward thinking, mind thinks to the past. Okay, what are the historical
Sure.
matchups there? So, what comes to mind is okay, I was thinking Auburn, Oklahoma. When have they played? Oh, yeah, they played in the 2016 Sugar Bowl.
Yep.
Baker Mayfield, Oklahoma won that game.
Yep.
Then they against Texas, I don't believe that they've played since the 83 season,
Yep. That's
a
correct.
season in which I believe, I don't know that we've ever gone down this path, Kyle, that I believe Auburn should claim a national championship.
Absolutely, they should have. And in some ways, we kind of have, I believe. It's interesting. If you go to Auburn's website, you're going to find obviously the two that there's no disputing over 1957 and 2010. But there's, I believe, two more now that are up there. And if I'm not mistaken, 1983 is one of those. I could be wrong on that. So there's been this push for the longest time that Auburn should claim that 1983 national title. If you do your research on that, you'll be asking yourself the same question: why were they not named the national champions? It's a no brainer. I can't remember the exact details of who lost to who and why that and
Well,
who
I
why.
can.
Do you want to lay it out for everybody?
Well, my perspective's a little bit different. So, Kyle, I'm not going all the way to your end of the spectrum.
Sure.
I we go through a process here at the Voice of College Football where we go through every year and say, okay, this is who was voted the national champion. Was that fair? Was it equitable? Are there other teams
Sure.
who have a resume? And so what I tend to do is pre BCS era clearly, and even in the BCS era, add to national championships. I
Mhm.
rarely take some away. I have taken some away to say why is Colorado the 1990 national champion? They tied a game. They lost a game. They were given a fifth down to win another game. They were giving a clipping penalty to win another. They really lost three games. They're not the national champion. That's a bit rare as opposed to me saying 1983. Miami was voted the national champion. They went 11-1. They beat the team that everyone was talking about as the greatest of all time, Nebraska, in the Orange Bowl. Auburn went 11-1 as well.
Mhm.
They played a schedule, folks, that was unbelievably difficult.
Yep.
Like they played an SEC schedule, then they're like tacking on Texas and Maryland, who was like a top 10 team. They're like their non-conference schedule was like playing three other SEC games. Like it's a ridiculously difficult schedule. They navigated that to 11-1, beat a Michigan team that was 7th or 8th in the country in the Sugar Bowl. But you also have this issue. If Auburn can claim a national championship, which I believe they can, Texas should be able to claim a national championship as well. They finished 11-1. They beat Auburn head to head
Yep.
by 2 scores at Auburn. But I think one of the hangups people have, Kyle, is they treat bowl games like they're playoff games.
Mhm.
They were just another game. So since Texas lost to Georgia by 1 point on a muff punt with like 4 minutes left in the game, they take Texas out of the equation. I don't think that's fair to Texas. I don't treat bowl games; they're not playoff games. It's just an additional game. So in my Voice of College Football book of national champions of 1983, it's Auburn, it's Texas, it's Miami.
And listen, we've got several years where there's co-national champions, and I'm fine with sharing it in the title a little bit if that's what it takes to get the official claiming of that. I tried to do some quick Googling real quick, and it depends on where you look at. I don't know that 1983 is listed on Auburn's official site. I'm struggling to find that page. But I agree with you. Whether you look at your metrics or whatever way you look at it, Auburn should be able to claim that 1983 national championship. And hopefully, if it's not done so already, in due time, because if you've looked back at some of Alabama's national championships, you'll wonder why they claimed a few.
This is true. I would also claim a national championship in 2004 if I was Auburn.
That's another one. You're just bringing up all the ones we should, could have, would have, should have. We can make cases all day about 2004, about 1983, about probably some in the 19 teens as well. By the way, just a quick aside here. If anybody's ever wants to do a deep dive into Auburn lore, go look up Iron Mike Donahue, or Mike Donahue is his name, but he's known as Iron Mike, and his legendary time at Auburn. He had quite the resume. Now, that's way back in the weeds, but I've been saying it for a long time in the Auburn family. Put some respect on Mike Donahue's name. He's got a street named after him by the stadium, after all. But anyway, claiming national titles, yeah, Auburn's got a case for a lot of them, and then hopefully that'll continue to be a more prevalent thing they do and make a bigger deal about it in the coming years.
I'll end it with this, Kyle, unless you have anything else to add. As I posted on X the other day, Michigan claims 4 national championships, and they have every right to do this, but let's understand that 4 of these national champions, they have 10 national, 12, whatever they've got. But 4 of them they claim, and again, I have no issue with them claiming them, but it should be understood that 4 of those occurred before there was a legal forward pass in college football. Can we really even consider that to be the same sport?
Definitely changes the game,
They were
literally.
basically playing rugby with
Yeah.
guys that weighed 120 pounds. So, yeah.
That's a great point. It's definitely a different game when you think about it from that perspective. So we can dice this up and slice it up no matter which way. The great thing is this gives us great things to talk about in the offseason and continue to speculate and argue and, support our positions on things like who deserves to have what national title.
Well, Kyle, we appreciate you being here as always. You know, you're welcome every week.
Thank you.
E2C Network, everyone, for Auburn discussion over there on a regular basis. All right, Kyle, have a great week.
You as well. Thank you. War Eagle.